My name is Renee Hartley. I'm a PhD student here on Ngunnawal country at the Australian National University. My PhD project is about the impact of herbivores, mammalian herbivores, on the grasslands of the New South Wales high country, and in particular their impact on an endangered lizard, the alpine she-oak skink. So my research is on Jilmamidang, Narrego, Walgaloo, Ngunnawal and Wiradjuri country in Kosciuszko National Park. So first we looked at which herbivores occur across the region and whether they might impact on the vegetation and soil characteristics. At 67 sites across the grasslands, we measured grazing pressure by looking at things such as tracks, scats and sign. And we also measured vegetation characteristics and soil characteristics such as vegetation height, foliage density, that sort of thing. We found sign for 7 herbivore families in Kosciuszko National Park. The exotic herbivores were horses, deer, pigs, rabbits and hares, and the native herbivores were macropods, wombats and the vulnerable broadtooth rat. We excluded the herbivores that we only found at a small number of sites, and we used the 4 most common families to do our statistical analyses. We found that exotic herbivores were almost ubiquitous across the landscape, whereas native herbivores occurred at only about 1/3 of the sites. And exotic herbivores were also found at higher elevations than native herbivores, which is of concern because those ecosystems didn't evolve with much grazing pressure, and so they're therefore more likely to be more vulnerable to their impacts. So exotic herbivores were associated with shorter and less dense grasslands and higher soil compaction, while native herbivores were not. Weed cover was associated with total grazing pressure, which was a measure of native and exotic herbivores combined. The second component of the project was to look for the alpine she-oak skinks. The alpine she-oak skink in New South Wales, as well as being endangered, is further classified as data deficient because we knew very little about its ecology and its habitat and management requirements before we started this project. It was known just from a few key sites, but there was a lot of suitable habitat that hadn't yet been surveyed. So we put out 116 sites across Kosciuszko National Park in the grasslands, and over the 3 years we found them at 47 of those sites, which is really great. It really improves our knowledge and our understanding of their habitat and their distribution. So at the sites where we found them, as well as the sites where we didn't, we measured characteristics such as shrub cover and distance to water bodies and aspect, things like that, to help us analyse what their habitat requirements are. We conducted genetic and dietary analysis and found that alpine she-oak skinks select particular invertebrates, we think from the ground and from the foliage in the grassland, and they seem to be eating things like millipedes, caterpillars, cockroaches, that sort of thing. And that was a bit of a surprise. They didn't seem to eat any ants or plant material, which was interesting because it contrasts to the endangered Guthaga skink, which they share some habitat with. So in this final year, as the project's coming to a close, we are going to bring those first 2 elements of the project together and have a look at how grazing and fire impact on the alpine she-oak skink populations. We're able to incorporate fire because in the bushfires of 2019 and 20, about 40% of our sites were severely burnt, and we have the data from before and after those fires, so that fits into our study quite well. This project will improve our ability to manage the alpine she-oak skinks and the herbivores in high elevation grasslands and those communities more broadly.